What is up, guys? Welcome back to Will of DDT. My name's Anonymous, and today we are going to be going over our deck profile for Purple Black Luffy. This is a super fun leader, but definitely the unsolved leader of OP9. Very quirky and kind of unique abilities that take advantage of like heavy Dawn minus effects. There are a lot of different lists for this guy, but after experimenting, this is what I like running. So I personally came up with this list, and I think it's working pretty solid. Again, definitely this is going to be a rogue deck, but I think you can really high roll with this deck and do some crazy stuff. So if you're interested to see this deck profile and check out the card choices and hear some explanations for why they're there and what ratios I chose, then stick around and watch this video. If you want to jump straight into some gameplay, then you can click the link down in the description, and you can jump straight to our gameplay guide where I actually run different games with this leader, play different matches on the sim, and show you how to win against different leaders in the meta right now. But yeah, stick around if you want to watch the deck profile, and without further ado, we'll jump right into the list. Alrighty, guys, so let's get right into the list over here. So we have our peanut butter Luffy leader, and let's review the effect again, just to refresh your memories. We've got Dawn ×1, all of your characters gain +1 cost. So that's not a particularly great ability or anything, but it is just kind of a nice utility. Essentially, all of your characters are going to cost 1 more, and that just helps against removal effects. So if your opponent is playing black, or just in general, if they have some sort of removal effects, this is just going to make your characters that much harder to get rid of, just make them a little stickier on board. And then the second effect, which is the much more important one, once per turn, if you return 2 or more Dawn cards, you're going to get 1 Dawn back active and 1 Dawn back rested. So essentially, if you return 2 or more Dawn, you get 2 Dawn right back, which is pretty freaking neat. It's a very niche ability. It makes you kind of avoid the purple cards that only do -1s, which is the vast majority of purple cards, and instead you have to prioritize purple cards that do -2s. But you know, if you build the deck around that, you can definitely accomplish some really sick plays. So essentially, that is what we are building our deck around. We want to minus multiple Dawn with our plays so that we can get them back and just have kind of efficient Dawn usage. So first up, we are running 4 copies of the 1 cost law. On play, you look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You can add a Heart Pirate or a Straw Hat that is 2 cost or higher. So that just going to be a searcher for the vast majority of our deck. So we are running 4 copies of law, pretty self-explanatory. And then next up, we have 3 copies of geez, I hate these events with these long names. When you're at sea, you fight against pirates. This is essentially just the top 3 search for Heart Pirates, Kid Pirates, or Straw Hat Pirates. So it's just going to be a top 3 search again for, again, anything you need in your deck. I just found that 4 searches was not enough. This deck is trying to turbo out boss monsters really quickly, and so in order to reliably see the pieces, you know, you want it within 4 turns, you want to put a 10 cost on the board, and so in order to reliably see the pieces that you need to accomplish that, I just feel like the 4 searches weren't enough, and so I've put in these 3 as well. You could cut this to 2 if you feel it's, you know, 6 searches is doing all right, but I really do think you need a little more than 4. So I like the 7 searches here. The trigger also searches, which is nice, so it doesn't feel like a truly like a brick. If you hit it off life, at least you get to search immediately for some counter when you need it. And yeah, this deck is just, because of your leader ability, you're always getting back some Dawn. You usually have 1 Dawn left over to use for this, so I don't feel like it's particularly bricky to run the event search in this deck. And we're running, I'm just going to get to the ramp cards here, because again, your leader is looking to ramp really fast. You want to get to 10 Dawn as quickly as possible, and so you want to run several ramp cards in order to accomplish that. So we are running 4 copies of Black Maria. Now, Black Maria is not usually a ramp card per se. She's more so used as like a Dawn recovery card for leaders and characters that have heavy minus Dawn effects. So if you have like a leader like, say, structured at Kaido, who minuses 7 hold on for his ability, Black Maria is the perfect type of card for that deck, because you just get 5 Dawn right back. In this deck, you actually you're not using her to recover Dawn, you're using her to ramp. Just because of the way she interacts with your leader ability, it's kind of just a quirk or coincidence of how they interact, you'll end up ramping one Dawn if you use Black Maria as your very first ramp card. So for those of you who don't know how Black Maria works, activate main, you once per turn, if you've got only one Black Maria on board, you get 5 Dawn rested. So you add 5 Dawn from your Dawn deck rested, and then at the end of the turn, you minus Dawn until you're back at the same amount as your opponent. So just because of how the normal game mechanics work, along with this leader ability, if you play Black Maria on your 3 Dawn turn, you activate her, you get 5 rested Dawn. Then you're going to minus Dawn to return to the same amount of Dawn that your opponent has. So let's say you play her on 3 Dawn, your opponent has 2 because they had 2 Dawn last turn. You start with 3, you play Black Maria, you activate. And then at the end of the turn, you're going to lose all the Dawn that Black Maria gained you, and you're going to go back down to 2 Dawn because that's how much your opponent has. But then, because you minused so many Dawn, your leader kicks in and you gain back 2. So you started the turn with 3 Dawn. Black Maria makes you drop to 2 Dawn, but then your leader gains you 2 back, and you end up at 4. So you effectively ramped 1 Dawn. So yeah, that was, forgive me if I made that a really long-winded explanation, but essentially it's just kind of a quirk of this card. It's a 2k counter, which is nice, but we run 4 of it because if you see one early game, it is very helpful. Again, Black Maria will only ramp you a Dawn in this deck if she is the first ramp card you played. So if you've already played a Zoro or a Bon Clay, then do not bother with her. But if you play her first, that is a good use of the Black Maria. And I also just like the Maria because she is a... she's perceived as a threat. Like, a lot of people think, oh, you're gonna abuse the Black Maria to like keep gaining back Dawn later on. No, in this deck, we have no intention to use her after we've used her that first time. So if your opponent wastes removal getting rid of her, fantastic. I love baiting out removal with the Black Maria because they think you're gonna use her. You actually are not gonna use her at all after that first turn where you play her. So our next ramp card is gonna be Zoro. This one is specifically designed to work with our leader. On play, you may return 1 or more Dawn to your Dawn deck, and then you add up to 1 active Dawn. So you're going to play Zoro, and then he is going to return 2 Dawn. You're always going to elect to return exactly 2 Dawn with Zoro. So you play him for 3. 2 of the Dawn that you just spent, you return to your Dawn deck. Then Zoro gets 1 back active from his own effect. Then your leader ability kicks in and you get another back active and another back rested. So you played Zoro for 3 Dawn, and it's, you know, essentially you sent 2 of them back and got 2 back active. So Zoro is almost like a 1 cost because you get 2 Dawn back active after you play him. So even though he costs 3 technically, it's almost as if he's only a 1 cost, which is insane. A 1/5 is freaking crazy, and you end up ramping a Dawn in the process thanks to your leader ability. So yeah, generally this is what you want to see on your first ramp turn or your second. And then the final ramp card that you want to see is Bon Clay. So Bon Clay is just, I mean, this guy's a staple for a reason in pretty much every purple deck because it is just one of the easiest and just most solid ramps in the game. You play him for 4, you gain an active Dawn, and then this guy is a big threat on board because he can copy the power of any of your opponent's monsters, which is pretty nuts. So generally, again, you want to reach 10 Dawn with this deck as quickly as possible. You want to play your 10 drop by turn 4, and so with this leader, what you're looking to do is if you go first, you need to ramp 3 times. And so you want to play Black Maria on your 3 Dawn turn, and then on your next turn you'll be at 6, so you want to play Zoro and Bon Clay. So if you're going first, you want to ramp 3 times, and that will either mean that you need to play 1 Black Maria, 1 Zoro, and 1 Bon Clay, or you can do a Zoro and then again a Zoro and a Bon Clay. Zoro only ramps you once per turn, so you know, you can't just see like 3 Zoros, unfortunately, but you could do Zoro on your first turn and then again Zoro on your second turn and Bon Clay, or you could do Black Maria on your first turn and then Zoro and Bon Clay. So you know, either 2 of these and 1 of this, or 1, 1, and 1. That'll get you to 10 Dawn in 4 turns if you're going first. If you're going second, it's much easier. You only need to see 2 of them, and so pretty much any combination of any 2 of these will work out if you're going second. So yeah, guys, just wanted to devote enough time to explain that properly, because ramping to 10 by your 4th turn is like probably the most impressive thing that this deck does very consistently. And here is what you are going to, these are the fruits of your labor. After you ramp to 10 Dawn by turn 4, you're immediately going to drop this. So you're going to have a Zoro on board, a Bon Clay on board. Just swing with them, swing at your opponent's life, just get their life down low, and then spend all 10 of your down, slam down the 10 cost Luffy, and then on play, you guys know what this guy does. He minuses all 10 of your Dawn, bottom decks your whole board, so you lose whatever you had on board. So don't play anything big before this guy. You always want to optimize this guy or prioritize this guy first, and then basically you have a 12k on board, and then your leader ability will kick in after you minus the 10 Dawn. You'll get 2 back, 1 active, 1 rested, and then this guy can activate main, spend 1 Dawn, so you basically get to rest 1 Dawn that you got back from your leader, and then you get another Dawn active, and then you get to take another turn after that, which is freaking insane. So yeah, again, I'm not gonna spend too much time explaining how this guy works. I think most of you will know from RP Luffy. This is a very popular card in that deck, but it works really well here as well, just because of our leader ability. So essentially, you are going to play this guy on turn 4, minus 10 Dawn, get 2 back, spend 1 for this guy's ability, take another turn, swing with your leader, swing with this guy, and then again, spend 1 Dawn to get another Dawn back active. So if you do that correctly, after the second turn that you take from your 10 cost Luffy, you will end up at you'll end up at 6 Dawn. You'll end up at 6 Dawn after taking 2 turns from the 10 cost Luffy, meaning the next turn you will be at 8 Dawn and you can play your Moria. So this is really, really nice. This is a black deck after all, and so we can play probably the most busted card in the game. We can play Moria, and yeah, Moria has some pretty neat targets that you can revive in this deck, so he is just really helpful, and then he's just going to be a 9k on board. So essentially, you're just turboing out boss monster after boss monster. You want to go for your 12k Luffy first, and then your 9k Moria, and then you can follow it up with your 9-drop Luffy. 9-drop Luffy is really freaking good. On play, you minus 1 or more Dawn. In this deck, again, you're obviously always going to minus exactly 2, and then your leader's going to bring 1 back rested, 1 back active. And then that extra Dawn you can use for whatever you like. But then this guy gains Rush, and he draws a card, so you go hand size neutral when you play him, which is freaking nuts. And this is just a really good searchable boss monster as well. Sometimes you also fail to see your ramp card. Sometimes you just get unlucky with your draws, and you just won't see these ramp units over here. And so it is handy to have a 9 cost instead of a 10 cost that you can play reliably on turn 4. Sometimes the game just goes that way. You're not going to be able to get out your Gear 5 Luffy, and so you just go for this guy instead, and then just try to play Morias from there. So this is very solid, good pressure, and again, decent alternative to this guy if you're not able to ramp to 10 in time. So next up, I'm just going to share some 2k counters. Obviously, we have 4 2ks in the form of Maria, but she's also a playable unit because you use her to ramp. Now we're going to go to our other 2Ks. This is going to be our 6 cost Sanji. He's a blocker, 6 cost 6k blocker, 2k counter, which is really nice. Searchable, obviously, but then his effect, of course, is if you've got 2 Dawn less than your opponent, or if the gap is greater than that, if you've got at least 2 Dawn less than your opponent, then you can play this guy for only 3 Dawn, which is why I actually like him at 3 over here, because we can also play this guy. The second turn that you take after playing your 10 cost Luffy, you will start at 5 active Dawn. Again, you'll rest 1 with this guy's ability to get another active, but you'll definitely be, at that point, 2 Dawn less than your opponent or more than that. So that is a really good opportunity to actually just drop the Sanji for 3, just play a 3 cost 6k blocker, which is super economical. So yeah, I like running 3 of this guy because the second turn that you take with 10 cost, that's a very opportune time to actually drop the Sanji if you want to play it. Beyond that, we also have Beppo, who is a searchable 2k. His ability is also decently relevant. When a Dawn on your field is returned to the Dawn deck, which we do pretty much every single turn with this deck, your leader or any of your characters gains plus 1k for the turn. So Beppo is nice because you can use him as a 2k counter very easily, and then you can revive him off the Moria. Moria is going to revive 1 2 cost and 1 4 cost, of course, so you can revive Beppo rested as the 2 cost, and then minus some Dawn, and then you can buff your leader or any of your characters by 1k using Beppo's ability, which is really nice. It does come up more than you think. So I really like running Beppo for that reason. And then 2 is enough, though. I will say, guys, if you're confused about these ratios, if you happen to watch my gameplay guide first, I did re-record this video, so I've changed some of the ratios from there. I do think overall this is the better list. So if you're coming from that video, I would follow these numbers instead of the numbers that you saw in my gameplay guide. Although, overall, it was pretty similar. This is Uso Hachi, our last 2k counter. So he is a 2k counter that on play rests a 5 cost if you've got 8 Dawn or more, which is really nice. If you're going for game, your opponent has some blockers, drop down the Uso Hachi, and then just swing big with your boss monsters, and that'll win you the game. So Uso Hachi, goated 2k counter, and that makes for a total of 3, 5, 8, 12 2Ks. So we've got 12 2Ks, which feels really, really good. Next up, we've got the 4 cost Frankie. This card is made for this leader. He essentially has a queen effect. He's a blocker, and on play, you Dawn -2, you trash 1 card from your hand, and then you draw 2. So kind of unfortunate that you have to trash before drawing, but still really good with this leader because the 2 Dawn that you minus, you're going to get him right back with your leader. And obviously, this is the ideal 4 cost target to play off of your Moria. You want to drop your Moria, you want to revive Frankie active, and you want to revive Beppo rested. So just really solid. I really like how Frankie works with this deck. Just allows you to just keep sustaining, just keep dropping blockers and pushing your opponent that much further from the victory, and then just keep hand size neutral because Frankie is going to draw 2 cards after trashing 1 from hand. So you go hand size neutral off of Moria, it feels phenomenal. Just very, very good for outlasting your opponent. And then we've got Nico Robin as a 2 cost blocker. Again, this deck is just getting back so much Dawn with effects like Zoro, Bon Clay's getting you 1 active, your leader's bringing back 1 active. You always have a little bit of Dawn left over after you make your plays, and so I like just having a 2 cost blocker that you can drop and just make your opponent's life that much harder by just dropping an extra blocker that they have to get through one way or another. So I think this is good. You can also revive it off the Moria. Usually you're going for the Frankie, but if you don't have the Beppo and trash, you can actually just revive like Frankie rested and Robin active if you think you can afford that, because Frankie just stays on board, and if they swing at it, it's like, cool, he acted like a blocker anyway, he got his on play effect, and that's a swing that went towards him instead of life, right? And then you've still got a little 2 cost blocker up. So this is also a good candidate to revive off of Moria, but generally I like just playing it from hand. And then next up, we have the 5 cost Sanji from the ST14 starter deck. This is really good with this leader because, again, when you put 1 Dawn on your leader, all of your units cost 1 more, and Sanji's effect is if you have a 6 or higher character on your board, Sanji can kill an opponent's 5 cost. So as long as you've got a Dawn underneath your leader, Sanji counts himself as a 6 cost as soon as he comes into play, and then he will KO one of your opponent's 5 costs, which is really freaking dope. So yeah, it just works really well with this leader. Again, it's searchable. Generally, I don't like playing this mid-game because you're usually too busy ramping. You're too busy playing your Marias and your Zoros and Bon Clays. But if you're going second, I think there's an opportunity to do both. If you're going second, you can play a Maria on your 4 Dawn turn, and then on your next turn, you'll be at 7 Dawn, so you can actually play Zoro. Again, he gets 2 back active, so you only spent 1 on Zoro, effectively, and you'll still have 6 Dawn left over to put 1 underneath leader, and then spend 5 on Sanji to kill something. So there is actually potential to still, if you're going second, to still meet your ramp curve and also play a Sanji, which is just a great momentum swing. But generally, this guy is just handy to have late game. you know, he can also be used to just KO any 5-cost they're playing after you've brought out your boss monsters. You can be playing this guy late game, but even in the mid game, like I said, there are occasionally opportunities to drop him, and I think that's really solid. We are running a 1 of 7 cost Sanji. So on play, this guy minuses, again, 2 Dawn. Your leader's going to get one of them right back. So it's almost like he costs 6. And then he gets to rest one of your opponent's 6 or lower characters. And he gains Rush. Freaking awesome card. I occasionally consider cutting one of this Sanji just because it doesn't have counter, which is a little disappointing. I occasionally consider cutting one of this Sanji to put 2 of these in, but so far I just feel like this guy really is, he's a game ender, and you don't often need him just because you've already got such big monsters on board. But yeah, I mean, this is a solid card. It's searchable. It's got a counter. If you wanted to put it to 2, I would cut one of the other Sanjis and just up this guy. But yeah, very solid. I do like it. And then we are running 2 copies of the Gum Gum Jet Gatling. This is a 0-cost event that allows you to put some of the bricks in this deck to use. You do have a good amount of bricks. After you've played 1 10-cost, you probably aren't going to play the others realistically unless you're going for like a game-ending turn where you drop another one and just get the extra swings because of the extra turn that you get. So yeah, generally, once you've played 1 10-cost, the other one can become discard fodder for the 0-cost event. And then you can also, you know, put bricks like Sanji, like your 8-drop Moria to use with this guy. So just because there's so many bricks in this deck, I do like running this at 2, and the trigger is also pretty relevant. You get to add 1 Dawn from your Dawn deck, set it as active. So if you notice that, you know, you don't have the necessary cards in hand to ramp to 10, and then let's say your opponent swings at your first 2 life and you happen to see this in your first 2 life, you can activate that trigger and say like, oh, hey, would you look at that? Lucky trigger, I get to play my 10-cost after all. So I do like it for that reason. Obviously, you're not relying on the trigger, but it is nice if it comes up. And then last but not least, of course, we are running 3 copies of Gum Gum Giant. If you think this is sacrilege, you can up it to 4 and you can get rid of something, but I think 3 is enough, just because, you know, we have a good amount of defensibility with the repeatable blockers from Moria, with the Nico Robins, again with the Jet Gatling as well. I think like 3 of these is enough in my testing, and yeah, this card is just freaking goated, guys. If you don't know what it does, 1 Dawn, return 2 Dawn to your Dawn deck, and then you get to buff your leader or one of your characters by 4k, which is insanity. You trash a card, but then you draw 2. So you go hand neutral, your hand size stays the exact same, you get to drop bricks and filter through your deck, and you get to give someone a 4k buff for only 1 Dawn, which is insane. Such a freaking good card. Just make sure not to use it on the wrong turns. Again, like the turn immediately after you use your 10-drop, when you pass to your opponent, like you can leave a Dawn up just in case you're scared of lethal, but I would not recommend using the Gum Gum Giant, because after playing this guy, again, you'll be on 6 Dawn. If you use Gum Gum Giant, you'll go back to 4, and then you'll only be on 6 Dawn again on your next turn. So you don't want to use it, ideally, right after playing this guy. You want to let yourself go back up to 8 Dawn so that you can drop the Moria the following turn. So yeah, just make sure that you're not using this and getting yourself in a bind because you minused 2 recklessly. But overall, this is definitely going to save you in a pinch, and it's just a fantastic card once you're at 10 Dawn that you can just casually drop over and over again. So yeah, guys, that is the deck list. Again, if you guys want to see actual gameplay of how this works out in practice and how to play different matchups, definitely check out the gameplay guide in the description down below. Again, the list changed a little bit, so I would use this list, not the one in the gameplay guide, but again, they're very slightly different. It's not a big deal. So yeah, definitely watch that if you want to see games and how to play this deck. And yeah, appreciate you guys checking in. Definitely let us know in the comments what other leaders you want to see. We have plans for some other cool off-meta decks like RP Kid, for example, but really interested to know what you guys want to watch, and definitely let us know, and we will see you in the next video, guys. Like, comment, subscribe, and peace.